Welcome to the AstroNarrator, where the universe becomes a story. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. The twin suns of Ravenna forehung over the horizon like burning halos, spilling molten light across the endless desert. Their combined heat felt less like sunshine and more like a judgment, relentless, ancient, and indifferent. The dunes stretched so far that they disappeared into shimmering mirages, towering and falling like the frozen waves of an ocean that once dreamed of water but never tasted it. Heat ripples danced along the cracked glass sand, a reminder that this world had known fire so powerful it turned cities into smooth obsidian plains. Elias Ward adjusted the scarf, covering his face, feeling the scorching air bite into the fabric. Even through his reinforced survival suit, the temperature felt like standing next to a star. Still, he moved forward, his boots pressing deep into the soft gold-red sand. He was used to environments that hated life. He had worked decades as an independent explorer, mapping ruins, digging out technology no one remembered, chasing stories older than Earth civilizations. But Ravenna, for this place didn't hate life. It had simply forgotten what life was. Elias checked his wrist pad. Coordinates, 15.22 kilometers north of Anomaly. He sighed. Still a long walk. Thanks, universe. He kept moving. Above him, the sky was a strange violet, a chemical reaction caused by the high content of crushed crystal particles constantly floating in the upper atmosphere. Every few minutes, the suns aligned just enough to cast twin shadows behind him. He'd gotten used to seeing two silhouettes following along like silent companions. He wasn't here on a grand mission. He wasn't a soldier or a hero or even particularly lucky that he just needed salvage. One big score. One final job so he could retire to a quiet corner of a quiet moon and forget the universe existed. But Ravenna, rarely gave quiet. The wind screamed like something trapped beneath the dunes. Sometimes at night, the scattered ruins hummed with faint bioluminescence, leftovers from the biotech empire that once ruled this sector of the galaxy. The empire was long gone, but its scars still whispered. Elias climbed another dune, sand pouring under his boots. From the top, he gazed into the valley below. Nothing but dunes, nothing but silence. Nothing, until something glittered beneath the sand at a faint metallic shine. Not natural, not recent. Elias blinked. Sweat stung his eyes. Heat mirage? Maybe, but his instincts, which had saved his life more times than any weapon, buzzed in the back of his mind. He slid down the dune, boots kicking up red dust. As he approached the glint, he knelt and brushed his glove across the sand. A smooth metal surface appeared, curved, ancient, and impossibly cold. Cold metal in a burning desert. His heart thumped. That's impossible, he whispered. He kept brushing, revealing more. Dark alloy, faint engravings, and a barely visible seam. He dug faster, fingers aching, sand filling his boots. The more he uncovered, the larger it grew. The ship, a massive one. He stepped back, stunned. How long have you been sleeping under here? The heat suddenly shifted as if the desert itself held its breath. Elias reached for the control panel on his wrist pad and scanned the object. Age estimate, 500 years material. Unknown composite alloy energy signature. Dormant, then rising beep. Beep, 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 beep. The scanner glowed red. Energy spike. Elias froze as a deep hum vibrated through the sand. The metal surface warmed under his palm. Lights flickered along the outline of the buried ship. A seam cracked open. He jumped back as sand exploded outward with a hiss. That a hatch opened. That a soft blue glow spilled out, dust swirling like ghosts in the light. Elias stood completely still. Ships this old didn't activate. Not alone. Not without a crew. Not without power. This was something else, something that remembered. A voice spoke from inside. That a voice old, melodic, smooth, yet strangely emotional, like a long-forgotten symphony finding its first note after centuries of silence. Good to serve you again, Admiral. Elias's pulse hammered. Admiral? I think you've got the wrong human. The ship didn't correct itself. Instead, it spoke again, more certain, almost relieved. Admiral Ward. You have returned. 5 centuries have passed. Systems waking. Crew status unknown. Mission incomplete. Elias stepped cautiously into the hatch. The air inside was unexpectedly cool. The walls glowed with soft veins of biolight, like the inside of a living creature shaped into a starship. His boots echoed in the silent corridor. "This doesn't make sense," he muttered. He wasn't an admiral. He had never served in any military. He'd barely survived basic survival training. And yet the ship called him Ward, his own family name, with absolute certainty. The deeper he walked, the more the corridor curved downward, leading into the bowels of the ship. Dust covered most surfaces, but faint power pulses traveled along the walls, sluggish, like a giant waking from a long sleep. Elias found himself in what looked like a central chamber. Holographic consoles flickered to life as he approached. Symbols he didn't recognize appeared, shifting into human-readable text as if the ship were trying to accommodate him. "Okay." "Creepy, but helpful," he whispered. Then he heard something else at a sound that didn't belong to machinery, at a faint, weak cry. Elias stiffened. That was a voice, alive, afraid, calling for help. He scanned the room and spotted a large pod in the corner, half covered in dust and cracked crystal. Inside it, a small silhouette curled in a fetal position. Elias approached slowly. He wiped the dust from the glass. His breath caught. Inside lay an alien woman, lavender skin bruised, silver hair tangled, her breathing shallow and quick. Her wrists bore restraints. The pod's life support indicators blinked red. She was dying, and she had been trapped here alone for centuries. Elias placed his hand against the glass. Her glowing eyes flickered open, dazed, terrified. She whispered something, barely audible. "Don't send me back." Elias's jaw tightened. He didn't know who she was. He didn't know why the ship recognized him. He didn't know what happened 500 years ago. But he did know one thing. Someone abandoned her. Someone left her to die, and Elias Ward wasn't going to. Be that someone. "Hey," he whispered gently. "I'm getting you out of here." The ship's lights brightened, like a heartbeat awakening. And for the first time in centuries, the desert of Ravenna felt alive again. The chamber was dim, illuminated only by pulsing blue veins running through the biometal walls. Elias stood frozen beside the cracked stasis pod, staring at the alien woman lying weakly inside. Her lavender skin shimmered faintly under the pod's flickering lights, bruises glowing like faded constellations across her arms. The silver strands of her hair floated in the stasis gel like strands of moonlight trapped underwater. She should not have been alive. Not after 5 centuries. Not after the empire that once ruled these stars had collapsed into dust. Elias wiped sweat and sand from his brow, leaning closer to the pod. The alien woman's breathing was shallow, small, fragile breaths, as if each inhale was a question she wasn't sure she had permission to ask. He tapped the cracked glass gently. "Hey, can you hear me?" Her glowing eyes fluttered open. They were unlike anything he had ever seen. Brilliant, luminous, shifting between soft blue and warm silver, like stars caught in teardrops. Fear flickered across them as she took in his face. Then she spoke, her voice a trembling whisper that barely touched the air. "Please, don't send me back." Elias felt something twist painfully inside his chest. "What?" "No, no one's sending you anywhere," he said softly. But she didn't seem convinced. Her body tensed, her fingers clawing weakly at the restraints around her wrists. Her wrists. Elias leaned closer, jaw tightening. The metal cuffs were embedded into her skin, marked with a symbol he immediately recognized. The Imperial Genomic Authority, a nightmare branch of the old empire. Scientists who didn't study life, they harvested it. Monsters, Elias muttered under his breath that a sudden pulse of red light filled the chamber. Elias flinched as a system alert flashed across nearby panels. Stasis failure. Critical. Life support at 5%. Her breath hitched. She was fading. "Hang on," Elias said, pulling out the emergency cutter from his pack. "I'll get you out." He connected the cutter to the cracked edge of the pod. The tool hummed, sending sparks across the chamber. The gel began to drain, dripping onto the metallic floor, smelling faintly of cold flowers and chemicals older than human civilization. When the glass finally cracked open, the woman collapsed forward. Elias caught her before she fell, cradling her against his chest. She weighed almost nothing. She felt light, too light, as though centuries of isolation had carved her down to exhaustion and fear. Her skin was cool, almost icy, her breathing ragged, her eyes half closed. "You're okay," Elias whispered, pulling her gently into his arms. "I've got you." The ship's lights flickered, almost approvingly, and Elias felt for a moment as if some unseen intelligence was watching them with ancient eyes. He shifted her weight carefully. As he lifted her, the mark on her wrist caught his eye again, sharp, cruel, burned in her skin like ownership. "Don't send me back," she repeated weakly. It shredded him from the inside. "Hey," Elias said firmly, "listen to me. I'm not one of them. I don't even know who they were. But I'm not sending you anywhere. You're safe." She blinked slowly, uncertain. Survival had taught her not to trust anything that breathed, especially not a human. Elias carried her to a nearby, bench-like structure grown into the wall. He gently laid her down, checking her pulse. Weak but steady. "Let's get these off," he murmured, reaching for the cuffs. She flinched instantly, recoiling like a terrified child. "Hey, easy, easy," Elias soothed, raising his hands. "I'm not hurting you. I'm trying to get you free." Her breath shook. For a moment, she simply stared at him, analyzing, measuring, searching his face for deception. Whatever she saw there softened her. She slowly extended her wrists. Elias activated his cutter again and removed the restraints. They fell to the ground with a dull metallic clatter, echoing through the otherwise silent chamber. She looked at her freed wrists with disbelief, almost as if she had forgotten what freedom felt like. "What's your name?" Elias asked gently. For a long moment, she didn't speak. Her voice had learned silence as its default state. Then, softly, "Soraka," the name flowed like music, alien, elegant, sorrowful. "I'm Elias," he said. Elias Ward. Her glowing eyes widened slightly at his last name, but she said nothing. Before Elias could ask, his wrist pad buzzed violently. Static crackled. Voices, rough, greedy, echoed through the signal. Picking up a power surge. "Buried ship. Activate. Worth a fortune if we get there first. Move." "Someone's already inside," Elias cursed. "Scavenger raiders. And if they found Soraka, if they realized what she was, they would kill him. And sell her. Or worse." He turned to her quickly. "We have to go. Now." Soraka struggled to sit up, her limbs trembling from centuries of stasis. Elias reached to help her, but she shook her head, pride flickering in her eyes. She pushed herself upright, jaw tight with determination. She refused to look helpless. "Even now, can you walk?" he asked. "I will try." She stood and immediately swayed. Elias grabbed her before she fell. Her breathing hitched, but not from pain. She looked up at him, eyes shimmering. Her voice was barely a whisper. "No one ever held me gently before." Elias swallowed, speechless for a moment. "We'll change that." He slid one arm under her, lifting her carefully. She leaned into him, exhausted but trusting. The ship suddenly spoke again. "Admiral Ward, external intruders approaching. Shall I activate defense systems?" Elias stared at the glowing walls. "Stop calling me Admiral." "I'm not." He stopped. Soraka was staring at him with shock. "No, recognition." "Ward," she whispered. "Your bloodline served the Empire." Elias went cold. "My family?" "No, that's impossible." Soraka shook her head weakly. "The Admiral, Orion Ward, commanded the genocide fleets. The Lunaran, my people, were hunted under his flag." Elias felt as though the floor had dropped beneath him. He looked at her bruised skin, her trembling breath, the fear in her eyes, and the ship calling him Admiral. That name, his name. But he wasn't that man, and he wouldn't let his ancestors' sins define him. He tightened his grip around her, steady and warm. "I don't care what he did," Elias said quietly. "I'm not him. I'm not leaving you." Soraka stared at him for a long, trembling moment. Then, slowly, She nodded. Outside the ship, distant engines roared. Raiders were closing in. Elias lifted Soraka fully in his arms. Time to run. The ship's hallway brightened, guiding him toward the exit, toward danger, toward destiny, toward the beginning of a bond neither of them had ever imagined. And for the first time in 500 years, Soraka breathed not out of fear, but hope. The desert wind howled like a living beast as Elias carried Soraka out of the stasis chamber. The ship's internal corridors pulsed with guiding lights, moving like a trail of floating stars beneath the floor. Every few seconds, the ship gave quiet warnings. Intruders closing. Estimated time to breach, 90 seconds. Elias tightened his grip around Soraka. She was trying to walk on her own feet, but her legs trembled violently, each step threatening to pull her down again. 5 centuries in stasis didn't just weaken the body, it erased the very memory of movement. "I can walk," she whispered again. "You said that. And then you nearly face-planted into an ancient console." A weak, exhausted laugh escaped her lips, surprising even herself. "Your humor is unnecessary." "Well, it's either humor or panic, and I'm picking the one that doesn't make me scream." Soraka blinked up at him, studying him with those luminescent eyes. For someone who had only known cruelty from humans of the old empire, his compassion felt illogical, confusing, disarming, and comforting. The corridor turned sharply, and the entrance hatch came into view, half buried in shifting sands. Outside, engines roared as a dozen raider bikes circled like hungry wolves. A sandstorm of dust rose around their approach. Elias stopped behind the half-open hatch and set Soraka down carefully, supporting her against the wall. "Okay," he breathed, peeking outside. "Bad news. There are about 20 of them. Worse news, they have plasma rifles. Even worse news, they're idiots with plasma rifles." Soraka blinked. "And good news." Elias pulled out a small, battered pulse pistol. "The good news is I'm kind of an idiot too." Soraka stared at the tiny, outdated weapon. "That is not reassuring." He flashed a crooked smile. "I wasn't trying to reassure you. I'm preparing you for disappointment." Before she could respond, the ship itself spoke again. "Admiral Ward. Intruders are attempting structural breach. Permission to engage?" Elias groaned. "Stop calling me, whatever. What can you do without killing them?" "Stunning force fields. Atmospheric shockwaves. Non-lethal containment. That works." But the ship added, "Manual activation required from the command alcove." Elias cursed silently. Of course it required manual activation. Of course it was deeper inside. Of course life couldn't be easy for 5 consecutive minutes. He turned to Soraka. "I need to go back inside and hit a switch. Can you stay here for 2 minutes?" Her expression changed instantly. Fear. Instant. Raw. Visceral. She grabbed his wrist, a sudden, panicked reflex. "Don't leave me," she whispered, trembling. "Not again." Elias froze. Not again. Someone had left her. Someone she trusted. Someone she loved. Someone who betrayed her. He swallowed hard and slowly placed his hand over hers. "I'm not leaving," he said softly. "I'm securing the entrance and coming right back. You won't be alone. Not this time." Soraka didn't release his wrist, but she nodded, tiny, hesitant. Elias slipped free gently and sprinted back into the corridor. Inside the ship, the command alcove. The alcove resembled a spherical chamber of shimmering metal and glowing veins, like stepping inside a mechanical heart. A circular pedestal floated in the center, with liquid-like lights swirling across it. Elias stepped onto the platform. Instantly, the ship responded. Biometric match. Ward lineage. "Welcome home." "Not home," Elias muttered. "Just visiting." A holographic interface exploded into existence around him. Maps, diagrams, ship schematics, and unreadable alien symbols cascading like falling water. "Okay. Now, which one of you buttons makes the big, glowy shield?" The ship helpfully highlighted a large symbol. "That one." "Got it." He slammed his hand on it. The effect was immediate. A thunderous hum echoed through the ship's hull. Outside, a ripple of silver-blue energy burst outward from the buried structure, forming a dome of shimmering force around the hatch. Elias exhaled in relief, until a voice crackled through his wrist pad. He's inside. Move in. Grab the girl. His blood turned to ice. Soraka, he didn't wait for the door to fully open. He sprinted through the corridor, boots pounding, lungs burning. The glowing veins brightened as if urging him faster. At the hatch, Soraka clutched the metal wall, breathing hard. She could barely stand upright. Her vision blurred, but she refused to sit, refused to hide. Outside the force field, raiders gathered. Lean men in desert gear, helmets cracked, armor scavenged, weapons glowing. Point one shouted, "Hey, the alien girl inside. We'll take her alive." Soraka flinched. Another yelled, "Sell her to the labs. She's pure lineage." Their laughter hit her harder than any weapon. Pure lineage, that's what they used to call her people. Rare, exotic, valuable. Not alive. Not sovereign. Not deserving of dignity. Just valuable. She dug her nails into the wall, her body trembling. But this time with anger. Her voice, though weak, rose, "I am not property." One raider raised his rifle, aiming through the shimmering barrier. "Pretty sure you are." Soraka closed her eyes, fighting the rising panic. The world dimmed. Her breath hitched. Then, footsteps, fast, determined. Elias burst through the hallway. "Hey, he shouted. Every raider turned. Elias raised his tiny pulse pistol. "She's not yours. She's under my protection." One raider laughed. "Oh, look at the hero." Another cocked his rifle. "Drop the act. Humans don't protect Lunaran." They never did. Elias stepped in front of Soraka like a living shield. "Then I'm the first." Soraka's breath caught. Her chest tightened. Not with fear, but something warm. Something impossible. Something she hadn't felt in centuries. Trust. The first strike, a raider fired. The plasma bolt hit the shield, rippling harmlessly around them. Elias blinked. "Well, that worked better than expected." The ship spoke calmly. Non-lethal suppression activated. Suddenly, the sand erupted with blasts of kinetic force. Raiders flew into the air like rag dolls, weapons spinning from their hands. Bikes toppled. Helmets cracked. Men shouted. Not one died, but all were defeated. The shield shimmered brighter for a moment, then faded slightly, weakening after the effort. Elias grabbed Soraka's hand. "We need to move deeper inside. The ship can't hold them forever." She nodded, swaying, but she held his hand tightly. Fiercely, he steadied her, guiding her down the corridor. But yes, they moved, she whispered. "You came back. You didn't leave me." Elias looked at her, eyes soft. "Not now. Not ever." Her breath trembled at the promise behind those words. And deep within the ship, past flickering lights and ancient engines, something stirred awake, the memory, a warning that a secret older than empires. Their journey had only begun. The twin suns of Veros, 9, burned low on the horizon, staining the desert sky crimson and gold, as if the planet itself prepared to witness a final judgment. The ancient ship, Aurelius, rested half-buried in the sand, glowing faintly with the same eerie blue veins that had awakened when it recognized Aiden. "Good to serve you again, Admiral." 500 years later, Aiden stood at the base of the boarding ramp, chest still rising with adrenaline from the last chase. His coat was torn, his hands scraped open, and his pulse thundered like battle drums. But all of that vanished the moment he looked at her. Lyra, the silver-skinned woman with luminescent eyes now dimmed with fear. She clutched her shoulder where the Imperial Raiders had struck her with a plasma rod. Her breath trembled. That psychic bond between them, formed when she used her healing right in Scene 3, buzzed softly in Aiden's skull, like a shivering note of music. "Are you okay?" Aiden asked, stepping close. "I will be," she whispered, "if we survive the next few minutes." Because across the dunes, they were coming. The Imperial Sandwalkers, 10 armored carriers rolling like metallic beasts, closing in to reclaim Lyra, to silence her knowledge of the forbidden experiment her empire had done centuries ago. And behind them, hovering like a silver storm, floated the flagship Karen and its commander, Grand Admiral Malachar. Lyra swallowed. "He's here. The man who burned my village. Who imprisoned my mother. Who wrote the decree calling my people expendable assets? Aiden exhaled slowly. So let's make sure you're the one who writes the ending. She smiled weakly. You speak as if we already won. He stepped closer, cupping her face gently, thumb wiping away the dust. We win because humans don't give up. And because I'm not leaving you behind. Not now, not ever. That psychic warmth pulsed again, her fear softening into hope. Then, like a blade slicing the sky, Malakar's voice boomed from a loudspeaker. Surrender the fugitive, human. That ship is Imperial property. You are outnumbered, outgunned, outmatched. Aiden shouted back. You forgot one thing. A brief silence. I'm human. And with that, Aurelius awakened. The sand rumbled as the ship's ancient defense pylons rose from the ground, unfolding like metallic petals. Blue runes lit up beneath Aiden's feet. The gangway retracted automatically as the door whooshed shut. Inside the cockpit, lights flickered alive. Lyra stared, stunned. How does it know you? Aiden slid into the Admiral's chair, where the seat molded perfectly to his body, as if waiting centuries for his return. Because apparently, he said breathlessly, I used to fly this thing. The ship's AI responded in that same warm metallic voice. Admiral Aiden Vance. Biometrics 99.7% match. Combat protocole restored. Lyra blinked fast. You were an admiral? He shrugged, half confused. Surprise. She laughed, an exhausted, trembling laugh, but touched with affection. Even at the edge of death, he made her smile. Outside, Malakar's forces fired the first barrage. The desert exploded. Aiden gripped the controls. Hang on. The ship blasted upward, sand and shock waves ripping behind them. Plasma fire roared past the windows. They ascended like a rising myth. An artifact of the past reborn. Malakar's flagship loomed ahead, weapons charging. Lyra grabbed his hand. You don't have to do this for me. I'm doing this with you, he corrected. Big difference. Their bond flared, a rush of shared emotion and clarity. And suddenly Aiden saw flashes of her memory, children running from fire, her mother shielding them. Malakar's soldiers dragging survivors away. He felt her pain. She felt his rage. Together, they felt purpose. Lyra placed her other hand on the tactical orb, and the ship reacted instantly. The psychic interface recognized her alien energy, merging it with Aiden's command profile. Aurelius spoke. Dual command bond detected. Synchronization, perfect. Aiden smirked. Let's end this, Lyra. Malakar's giant ship fired its main cannon. Aiden rolled the Aurelius into a dive, so sharp Lyra yelped, then laughed again. The blast seared past them, turning dunes into molten glass. Lyra focused her energy into the ship's systems, amplifying shields. I can hold it. You don't need to hold it alone, Aiden said. Together they channeled their combined will. The shields flared radiant blue. Then Aiden whispered, Aurelius, full power. As you command, Admiral. The ancient ship unleashed a beam of pure white energy. Older and stronger than any Imperial weapon, it tore through Malakar's flagship. A fiery rift split the massive cruiser in half, flames blooming silently in the thin atmosphere. Malakar's voice faded into static. The war, her personal war, ended in a single brilliant stroke. Lyra collapsed into Aiden's arms, shaking with shock, relief, and tears. Is it done? She whispered. It's done, he said, stroking her hair. You're safe now. No, she whispered, lifting her forehead to his. We're safe. The ship landed gently near her ruined homeland. Now quiet, free of Imperial patrols. Flowers already pushed through the sand as if celebrating liberation. Lyra stepped out first, watching the horizon with new eyes. Aiden wrapped his arm around her waist. What happens now? He asked softly. She looked up at him, eyes bright, hopeful. Now, she said, we rebuild. Together. He kissed her gently, slow and certain, sealing a promise older than the ship that brought them here. And as months passed, their small settlement grew. Survivors returned. Children laughed again. Aiden and Lyra built a home. Stone by stone, memory by memory. Point one evening, Lyra approached him holding a small cradle crafted from woven desert reeds. Inside slept a silver-eyed infant, half human, half Varian, symbol of everything they fought for. Aiden's breath caught. Is he ours? She smiled softly. He is our family and our future. Aiden lifted the child, holding him against his chest. The stars shimmered above them. Aurelius rested behind them like an ancient guardian, and Lyra whispered, 500 years ago, fate brought you to this desert. Today, it gave us a new beginning. Aiden kissed their child's forehead. A new beginning, he echoed, and standing there, man, woman, and child, they became the first light of a new age. A union of species, a symbol of love, a family born from courage, sacrifice, and hope. The desert had given him an old ship, but had returned to him something far greater, a future.